And I'm joined here today by my colleague, Ben Montgomery, independent journalist, New York Times bestselling author. I've been calling him the burgeoning boat captain, possibly headed for an indefinite hike on the Appalachian Trail. Ben, how are you today?
I'm very good, Ray. It's so great to be here this Friday.
And actually, so here's a little dirty secret today here on WMNF. Obviously, our third amigo, Mitch Perry, senior reporter at the Florida Phoenix, is not here today. He is exiled in Tallahassee covering another incredible 60-day session of legislative action up there. So we're all reading his reporting, but he's not here today. So you're hearing this on Friday, March 21st. But the truth of the matter is we're taping this.
Don't tell him.
I'm going to tell him.
Don't tell him.
You got to shine the light where the dark is.
It's Tuesday, folks.
It's Tuesday, March 18th. We're in the production studio here at WMNF Tampa, funded by you, the listeners, by the way. So thank you very much. Joe Remo is our engineer today. There will be no phone calls today on the show, but we're very grateful for this opportunity to tape this here. In the second half of the show, we'll be joined by former journalist Mia McCormick, who is now an advocate for the Environment Florida Research and Policy Center. We're going to talk about leaf blowers. And I know there's a very specific section of our listenership whose blood just started boiling. And I'm so sad that you can't call into this show because I know how this would have gone. But we're going to talk about that. But right now, we're going to stay here in Tampa Bay. Actually, we're going to go a little bit to Pinellas Park, but I think we're going to travel to Jersey a little bit, a little Texas action. We're joined in the studio today by Pete Guzzo, Development and Operations at the Sheer Media Studios in Pinellas Park. Pete, how you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. Thanks for having me, guys.
And also joining us via Zoom, Vince McDaniel, Dallas-based actor, producer, and filmmaker, who's you heard the score to one of his latest films, Boneyard, at the intro here. Vince, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. And just to let you know, I'm based in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we're still out there on Mountain Time?
Yes.
Okay. All right, perfect.
11:38.
Pete, the Guzzo name is very familiar to our listeners here. So let's just get that out of the way. Why is it familiar to us, and how are you different from that other guy?
Yeah, you probably heard of him, Paul Guzzo, award-winning journalist for the Tampa Bay Times for a long time. Before that, he was a journalist for La Gazzetta, the trilingual paper that the only one actually in the country that's right here in Ybor City.
104 years old now.
104 years old, and
Viva La Gazzetta.
That's where Paul started, and then he gravitated over to the Times, and you guys probably seen his name 1,000 times every Sunday and every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yep. And then here
mostly associated with wrestling,
and films,
and forgotten cemeteries.
Something about black cemeteries.
Yeah. Huge reporting on black cemeteries. Paul recently left the Tampa Bay Times. He's over at the University of South Florida now, and we hope to talk to him here in the coming weeks about all of that stuff. But you mentioned La Gazzetta, Pete. Paul came down here from Jersey with a guy named Gene Sedut.
Yes.
Tell me about Gene and why you decided to follow. Is Paul your older brother?
Yeah, Paul's my older brother.
Okay. Why did you follow them down here?
I don't know.
Did you know you were going to? Was that the plan?
No, that was never the plan. Paul and Gene apparently knew they're going to either move to, I believe it was Las Vegas, Tampa, and one other city. And they flipped a coin or threw a dart at the map, and it wound up in Tampa. Mm-hmm. So Paul and Gene came down here. I came on vacation 2 weeks later. I'd never leave the Northeast at that point. I take that back. I flew to North Carolina on a puddle jumper once. That was about it. That was my experience outside the Northeast. And I got down here. I was like, why the heck would I go back to the Northeast? And 2 weeks later, I told my dad I'm not going to school anymore in New Jersey or Pennsylvania or whatever third college I was transferring to was in that year and a half span. And I came down to Florida.
What was it? What
got his hooks
experience,
into
you?
Well,
take us there. What did you see?
I was a 21-year-old male.
That's it. That's all we need.
And the women's selection in Florida were much better than New Jersey.
Yeah.
And we had a pretty good public television station at the time. Were you already a filmmaker at that point? So I've been writing for Creative Living for a long time, and I actually remember your name because you and your brother used to make films, right?
Yeah, no, I started at public access. I came down here, radio journalism major, but I was still just kind of only 1 year in at that point. And I went to the University of Tampa when I moved here. Their radio program, their radio station really just at that point went about a mile. So I go, well, that's not very interesting. So I went to public access at the time. They
Channel
said,
20, kids.
Channel 20 and 21.
Okay.
2 channels, double the exposure. And they said that they'll teach you how to how to produce, how to do the technical directing, how to light, how to switch, how to do everything. And in 9 weeks, you could have your own show. So I was like, well, that's pretty fun. And Paul wrote. So I said, hey, I'll learn how to figure out to do this television thing. And how about you write some shows and we'll have our own show. And we had 60 episodes of a show with 5 guys talking about what guys talk about, doing skits. And we had about 60 episodes.
What was the name of the show?
Spooners.
Spooners.
Yeah.
Was that TBCN? Do you remember the call letters?
TBCN network.
Wow, that was. I'll tell you this, and as a young adolescent person, Channel 20 I used to watch a lot of. They had some pretty wild shows on there. So in between that, I mean, you started to become a pretty serious filmmaker there, Pete. Can you talk a little bit about your bona fides in between then and when you made that jump and how we got here to your connection with Vince and the project that you have now with Sheer Media Studios?
Yeah, in a nutshell, me and Paul, we went on, did a lot of skits, and so I started realizing, hey, this is something I want to get involved in. UT didn't have a film program per se back then. We had film courses and something called visual communication, which was just kind of a mashup of different classes you took. But I did have a film professor, Dr. Tregenza, that I liked. And so my first year in film school, I made a film called The Joy Story that Paul wrote. And me and Paul produced this whole movie with about 5 crew members that have never done a film before, not even in film school or my film class. Yeah. So me and Paul went to the James Joyce bar that was upstairs on 7th Avenue in Ybor City at the time.
The most dangerous stairs in Ybor.
I know. Imagine we had to put all this heavy equipment. Now, guys, this is back in like 2000. Video film equipment was very heavy back then. Even the audio gear was heavy. We got there every Friday night. We waited for the bar to close. We blacked out the windows. They let us keep our lights up in the ceiling. We'd turn our lights on, and we'd film from very early Saturday morning to Sunday night. That's where we did all the bar scenes at. And the best story is when we got done the whole thing, because we did also shoot on location. We're at James Joyce the bar, and me and Paul are sitting there looking at each other with a cast of like 50 people that were, I love them, but they're about to drive me crazy when I'm trying to direct, produce, do audio, and do all the technical things. Why is the Nagra failing? Which is great. And me and Paul go, can you believe we did this and we've never done a movie before? And the cast goes, you guys have never done this before?
How'd you get a cast of 50? I mean, are these friends or people are getting paid for this or no?
Nobody got paid.
Nobody got paid. So drinks?
Yeah, people were able to drink.
All right.
We destroyed a couple of really fine kegs of Jameis by popping the breakers once in a while. Yeah. That also kept the coolers. But Paul just doesn't stop writing. And I go, are you really going to write a cast where we have 50 people for the first film? Most people do like 2 actors. Yeah. But no, we had a cast of 50. It was unreal. People were dying. We had car scenes. It was like, all right, how are we going to pull all this off?
What was the movie about? What was it called?
It was called A Joy Story. It was about,
Joy Story, that's right.
It was about a couple nights in a bar and then like all the history that took place before it. And the main character, him and his girlfriend were having problems, or his wife, I'm sorry, and they're having now divorce issues, and she was going to take him for everything. And lucky enough, a couple of the bar patrons that came there frequently got in a car accident and killed his wife. And everyone danced at the end because now he didn't have to deal with getting divorced anymore.
What was your experience with...
it's not where me and Paul's career are today.
Did it screen at Gasparilla International Film Festival?
I don't know if anybody wanted to play it, but it did play back then at Ybor Moving Image and some other film fests, yeah.
You must have learned some lessons from that first...
That's right. We had to do something that we didn't really care about as much because we had to learn how to do a film. Paul had to learn how to write. We had to deal with actors, equipment. So to do a passion project that we really care about, a first one would have been very upsetting.
Yeah. And how long did that take to?
I think it took us like 2 months to film.
Yeah.
Yeah, and about 3 months of post-production. We shot it on film.
Yeah. Huh.
Gasparilla International Film Festival will actually kick off the week after this show airs. Did you get to show many movies there?
We did. We showed many movies there. Me and Paul are actually on the founding board of Gasparilla Film Festival as well. But yeah, every single movie me and Paul have ever made has played at Gasparilla International Film Fest. So we've been very fortunate.
So take me to Sheer Media Studios in Pinellas Park here. The name itself reveals your third partner or your partner in this. Talk about that relationship and why you would do this now at a time of so much uncertainty and economic strife. Why open up this studio in Pinellas Park right now, and what's the vision over there?
So Rhonda Shear and her business partner, Van Fagan, we all got in touch back in July, and they have this great facility that they already started turning into a studio. It was an old brownie factory, so it already kind of had everything laid out in the sense of like power and electrical. And I've already started developing another studio over in Channelside, which unfortunately didn't come to fruition just yet, but it's still sitting over there. And so I went from there, and then I jumped over to Sheer Media Studios. And the why is because Rhonda really wanted to give back to the community. She's been part of the studio system from her days from Up All Night and all of her film projects that she's done in the past, and especially then also being on HSN and also Canadian shopping networks and all the way to Australia. So she wanted to give back to the community here in Tampa Bay by building a massive studio system that kind of had a little bit of major stuff for everybody, meaning that we have a 3,000 square foot studio. We're about to have a 4,000 square foot studio, but we also have influencer suites, and we're also going to have curated sets. So if you need a living room set, you need a bedroom set, you have these sets that are pre-lit. The cameras, you can either use yours or you can rent some, but it's already developed for you, so you can get your ideas done, whether an advertisement or like I said, or if it's an influencer, or maybe it's a webinar or whatever that may be, you can get it done in 3 to 4 hour spans. You don't need to worry about building sets and doing all this. We have it done for you, and you can brand it as your own. Now, yeah, the reason why we focus on all those areas is because there is still high demand here. Maybe not a lot of people know it or don't know it in this industry, but a lot of commercials are made in Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. Actually, tons of commercials are done in Hillsborough County, Pinellas County. Also, you guys probably do know this part. We are one of the infomercial capitals of the world and direct response commercials of the world.
Is that because of HSN and what else is here? QVC?
QVC is actually in Pennsylvania, but I mean, I don't know for certain that's what's happened, but I mean, HSN definitely did lead to the development of a lot of homegrown on-camera personalities that know how to sell product. You know, you have Sullivan Productions here as well. So there is a lot of, you have Blue Water Media, that's one of their top business models, is infomercial, direct response, stuff that revolves around products and brands.
Including Rhonda, as we mentioned, we talked off air. Some people know her from HSN. Some people know her from Up All Night. Some people know her from Spaceballs.
Yeah, Rhonda is a highly successful entrepreneur. She started off in TV and movie, but what you didn't see behind the scenes, which Rhonda can talk more about, is she really shaped the show of Up All Night and the advertisers that were behind the show as well. She was a bubbly character on the screen, but behind the screen, she was all business. And then when she started her apparel wear, the Abra with HSN, that's when she just really blew up, and she found, I don't know the right phrase to say this because I don't want to steal it from her, but like her second career in business.
Yeah.
And she hasn't slowed down since.
Yeah.
She is a beast when it comes to business.
Yeah,
well, I wonder, it turns out HSN's owner announced in late January the company be closing its campus in, I think it's Pinellas Park, right? There at the Gateway.
Pinellas Park, correct.
And Curate Retail Group, which also owns QVC, said closing the St. Pete campus was part of an organizational structure realignment. I wonder if this studio will get work that can no longer, do what they need to do at the HSN studios.
We really hope so.
Yeah.
The way we have the studio set up is we actually have the whole the whole building is networked from everything from HDMI to SDI to XLR to data fiber cables. So you can do a multi-switch camera and streaming from any room in almost any studio influencer space in the building, which is very interesting. It's also great you can do esport tournaments there. So just to get on more complex end, you could have 40 gamers in one of the rooms, grab a live feed from all of those gamers, also have 7 cameras on the audience and the gamers moving on, and also have 2 commentators in another room and switch it back and forth just like you would see something on TV. That's how intricate we made this building.
Is it big enough to do wrestling?
The back area could do small wrestling
He's
shows.
Thought about it. You can tell he didn't waste any time.
But the back area is large enough also to do wrestling shows as well. So it is big enough for wrestling shows.
You mentioned, just how much stuff is produced here. And I think sometimes the narrative out in the public is that Florida is not a great place to make films because we don't have the same incentives as Georgia or anything like that. But we do have a film commission here in the Bay Area that works really hard. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with the film commission, and have you spoken to them about your studio? How do they support you? What is your relationship like?
Yeah, I speak to Tyler daily or weekly. Tyler's the Hillsborough County Film Commissioner. Lisa and us have a very strong relationship over at the Pinellas, the St. Pete Clearwater Film Commission. And one of the reasons for the studio is also to work with Lisa and also work with Tyler and even John from Film Florida to give them another tool, an asset for all of us to utilize. So when productions come down here and they're trying to figure out where they should go, because they have to do on location, but they also need a studio with our capabilities. Now they have that. So we really want to work with the film commissioners as much as we can to develop something that is not just useful for us, but is useful for the community, the ad agencies, production houses, TV personalities, influencer, anybody really who has content to get created. And the film commissions are definitely part of this success that we haven't had yet, but we are going to have.
And if you're just joining us, that voice that you're hearing belongs to Pete Guzzo. He's the Development and Operations Director. Is that a good?
That's good, yeah.
At a new studio in Pinellas Park called Sheer Media Studios. We've been talking about filmmaking here in the Bay Area, his past here, long connections. Obviously, the brother of a longtime Tampa Bay journalist, Paul Guzzo. But we also have Vince McDaniel here with us, who's in Albuquerque now. Pete, intro, who is Vince to you, and what are you working on? And after that, Vince, I'd love for you to come on and talk about, why working with Pete has been attractive for you.
Well, I mean, me and Vince have known each other about 3 years right now. We got connected through his agency, and we're working on a project called Unrested, which is a 4-part docuseries about the black graveyards in Tampa that were not only buried on top of, but also just completely forgotten about until my brother wrote the articles. And that's how we got tied in with Vince, who has an emotional connection with the documentary series that we're producing.
Yeah, Vince, talk about that. Talk about those moments when you saw that reporting first come out here, because nobody was shocked, but it is shocking in a lot of ways, and then how you ended up here working with the Guzzos.
Well, when I got the information, I was like, oh, okay, we finally got somebody that's ready to move on this, because this is something that's been going on in our community for some time. And, we just weren't able to do certain things about it because, for African American families, the erasure of these burial grounds wasn't just about losing a sacred land. It was about losing a voice, a connection to our ancestors, and a piece of our identity. While white families in the communities, they had the power and the resources and the privilege to speak up and protect what was theirs, our people were systematically silenced. We didn't have the same seat at the table or the ability to stop these injustices, no matter how devastating they were to us. So these cemeteries weren't just graves. They were the final resting place of our mothers, fathers, grandparents, and generations before us who endured slavery, segregation, racism, only to be disrespected in death and being denied the right and the honor to protect him is another brutal reminder of how deeply disenfranchised and oppressed we were, and in many ways we still are. So, it's really close to me, and it's a wound that will never heal because it wasn't just about the land; it was about erasing our very existence. So it's very powerful, and in our community, it's something that we have to uh, get down to the nitty gritty on this one. We have to tell these stories.
And I'm reminded because we live in this part of Florida, and Florida's got this amazing, this crazy migration happening here. It's not lost on me. There's a lot of people, even in this listenership, who don't know what we're talking about, right?
Correct.
We're the most famous, I think, black cemetery here in Tampa would be Zion Cemetery, established in 1901. It's the first and the largest one, really. Robles Park Village is a touch point there. It's right around there, but there's so many more. Ridgewood, there's a cemetery in Port Tampa. Memorial Park is another famous one. The Matthews Baptist Church has one. Curtis Fundamental School, and of course Woodlawn has a colored section there. How much? And I know the project's not out yet; still working.
Yep.
How much can you say, Vince, about what you hope the project was going to be and what it's shaping up to be, and what you hope eventually lands in front of people's eyes as they sit down in the theaters to watch this?
Well, I hope people. Well, once we get it out there, we just want people to realize what the setting was and how things affected a group of people that didn't have the voice to change certain things. And you got to look at a lot of other things as well, because there's still businesses that thrive on top of these graves, these graveyards, these cemeteries, and they're working off plausible deniability. They're not doing the research. Like, I'm not going to scan my ground because if I scan this, I can't develop anymore if I find graves or anything. So it's something that Peter and Paul and I and the rest of the team, we want to get out there and just raise more awareness and get the information out there and let these stories be told.
And Vince, can you talk about? Oh, go ahead.
You first.
Can you talk a little bit about your career as a filmmaker and how different this particular project is from other stuff you've done? I know Boneyard's got 50 Cent in it, Curtis. So talk about how this one kind of fits into the whole kind of schema of the work that you've put out.
So the work, I've been producing for a while. I've done a lot of action stuff, but most recently I did Boneyard with Mel Gibson, Curtis, 50 Cent Jackson, and with Boneyard, Mel jumped on that because of the Sound of Freedom and what we were doing and trying to raise awareness with this issue of missing women. And it's very similar because they were building a new housing community here in New Mexico, in Albuquerque on the west side, when a lady discovered some bones walking her dog. So, they had to go back and like lay all the sand back down. And these guys had to literally dig 15 feet deep to go through everything. And they had about 4 Olympic-sized pools to go through and sift through and try to find the rest of the bodies, which they did eventually. But it's just these people were covered up, they were buried, and they were forgotten, and they were being built over. And out here in New Mexico in the Southwest, we deal with cartels and high levels of crime, from drug trafficking. We have a lot of satanic worship that goes on here too. A lot of people do crazy sacrifices and things of that nature. But this, in relation to what I'm working on with Peter and Paul, it's similar. It's similar, but these were murdered victims. These are people that were taken from society, and they were considered individuals with alternative lifestyles. So they weren't looked after. They weren't really worried about And that's why the police's investigation has been really, go any further than, a couple weeks, and they just wrote it off. But those bones found there, it's similar to what's going on, but these young ladies were murdered. The people in Tampa, that's more of a, how can I say this? It's it kind of shows a pattern of how the playbook was to cover up things when it comes to certain groups of people.
Yeah.
And that's the difference over there. One, we're dealing with women who had an alternative lifestyle, considered prostitutes, and then we have another group of people, African Americans, people from the islands, Cuba, Jamaicans, Haitians, that are dealing with their history being erased and being forgotten.
Did you guys run into any pushback?
Well,
anybody not want you to make this film?
For the docuseries?
Yeah.
No, we have not received any pushback about the documentary series as of right now. We really haven't fully come out and said we're even developing it. Yeah. We are now, obviously, on this podcast.
This is for the record, gentlemen.
This is for the record. We are doing this.
Scoop.
It's out in the universe. I'm going to imagine we're going to get some pushback. I mean, even when me and Paul back in the day did the Charlie Wall documentary, when we asked people about Traficani, people basically stopped us from doing more interviews about Traficani. And that's why we stuck with Charlie Wall. This is a little different, so we're definitely going to go through with the whole thing. But I'm assuming we'll get pushback. But one of the things this documentary is about, it's also about Paul as a journalist and his findings and his research and how this whole thing unfolded. And that, whether Paul likes it or not, is going to be a portion of every episode is going to be Paul's journalism. And that's,
yes, it is.
Yeah, and that's crafted for two reasons. So me and Vince can do our job, and he doesn't have to worry about what he says. We can say that, be that voice for him, just to avoid any of that conflict.
Yeah, and Paul, I think, sometimes undersells who he is as a journalist.
Just a little bit.
He's always kind of let the work kind of do that for him. And to the point that you're making about the pushback, last week we had Congressman Jim Davis on, and he has this play called When the Righteous Triumph about the Woolworth sit-ins. And I know that they kind of deliberately flew under the radars to not kind of wave these flags, but he kind of landed at this point that was like, this is a story that transcends the politics of it all. It's about what's right and what's wrong and what happened to people. And at some point, at least in their particular story, people who stood up and did the right thing. And right now, it almost feels like a correction of history and an acknowledgement of all this stuff at an amazing time for the Bay Area. I mean, as we speak right now, I guess this will air on the 21st. That'll be 9 days out of the final local screening for Raised, a documentary that we talk about here, documenting a black community that was torn to the ground to build a baseball stadium in St. Petersburg, right? And the amazing thing about that was the filmmakers who had lived here their whole lives, essentially, didn't even know about it until they went to an event. So to continue to bring these things to light is super important. And do you guys have a timetable yet with this last minute left? You know when we might start seeing anything, or should people just kind of hang on?
We're going to start doing interviews in April, and then we're going to, all three of us are going to sit down. We're going to create a teaser from it, and then we're still raising money to finish it. We have the starting funds that can get us pretty far within the development, within the production stage, and we're using the teaser also to help us finish raising the funds.
Okay. All right. That was the voice of Pete Guzzo, Director of Development Operations at the New Sheer Media Studios in Pinellas Park. Vince McDaniel, also an Albuquerque-based filmmaker, actor, and producer. Thank you for joining us here on The Skinny today. I think we'll probably have you guys back on for sure. Maybe when Paul can talk, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about this movie, how far along you are, and bring some of those people on. So thank you guys both for coming on today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
In Orlando last week, the Volo Foundation held its annual Climate Correction Conference 2025, spotlighting individuals, communities, and organizations driving innovation and resilience in the climate space. One of the folks presenting at a hands-on workshop exploring climate solutions and fostering real-world impact was Mia McCormick. Mia is an advocate for Environment Florida Research and Policy Center, where she works to protect nature for future generations. Her advocacy focuses on clean energy, clean water, clean air, and reducing plastic pollutions on our beaches. And she spent a decade as a journalist in Florida before this and has witnessed how many of our environmental issues have led to health and economic struggles firsthand. So Mia's presentation focused on one particular problem, and it turns out Florida is a national leader in this problem. And maybe the work from home crowd is out there listening to us right now. Have you ever been on an important Zoom call and just when you get everything fired up, somebody outside starts running the leaf blower? This is our topic of conversation today, the leaf blower. And it's not just limited to that, but that seems to be the ire of the day. And we've got a clip that might help us understand this a little bit better. Kate Blanchett, the actress, it turns out, has a little beef with the leaf blower.
So what's your take?
Leaf blowers need to be eradicated from the face of the earth.
100% agree. I was in Miami the other day.
Yes.
I literally saw a guy blowing one leaf.
Maybe he was trying to blow the sand. But where was he blowing it?
It was on the beach, on the boardwalk. He was blowing one leaf.
So he'd been blowing that leaf probably from 5 blocks away. It had finally got onto the beach, and his employer had said, if you don't get rid of that leaf, you're done. But the stupidity, this is the thing, it's a metaphor for what's wrong with us as a species, is we blow from one side of our lawn to the other side, and then the wind is just going to blow it back.
Is this a problem in, like, Australia?
It actually, my rage went through the roof in Washington, where I think there's the highest concentration of leaf blowers.
In Washington, D.C.?
In America. Yeah. And they banned them.
I might move there.
They did a study back in, 2010 or something, that 30 minutes on a leaf blower, this is going to make you really sick, has more pollution than driving a pickup from Texas to Alaska. 30 minutes! It's really bad. So they banned them. In Washington...
Whatever happened to rakes?
No, see, this is the thing. Not only are leaf blowers ugly and they're noise polluting, then your neighbors hate you, because in the end, all you're doing is blowing the leaves onto your neighbor's lawn. So it's really bad for neighbor relations. They're really bad for your health, not only your ears.
Oh, I didn't know this.
But the rise of cardiac problems has gone through the roof because people are not doing the physical exercise. Make your kids do it.
That is really a good point.
It's true. I'll pay my kids $2 an hour. Okay, $3 an hour to rake the leaves and make sure their hearts are in good condition.
How old are they?
Well, they're now 24, so they don't listen to me at all.
No, they deserve $3 an hour.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
They're 25 years old. They're going to work for $3 an hour. Why do they blow instead of suck?
Like a vacuum cleaner.
Yes. Why are we obsessed with blowing?
I know. Hair dryers.
Everything's blowing, nothing's sucking.
I know.
Well, humans suck.
So every opportunity, it turns out, she's directing some anger and some heat at leaf blowers. Welcome to the show, Mia McCormick. How you doing?
Ben, thank you so much for having me. And I think that reaction that she has, we all, as soon as it turns on, as soon as you hear it outside your window, so many people have that visceral reaction of the cringe that for the next 30 minutes or so, you are just going to hear that constant sound that will never stop.
Yeah. And it's not just the sound that drives us crazy, or maybe it is, but something we don't necessarily notice is the pollution these things cause.
Sure. I talk a lot about there's the pollution that you know and the pollution that you don't know. Mm-hmm. So if you're driving your car down a highway and a dump truck in front of you lets out this giant plume of black smoke, you're like, oh man, I got to change lanes.
You see it, you drive right? Yeah,
right? You want to get out of the way. Or if you see a power plant and the smoke stacks, you're like, I'm going to roll up my windows because you don't want that pollution to enter your car. But yet we'll stand behind one of the most highly polluting pieces of equipment week after week, especially in the summer months in Florida, and just let all that pollution go into our face, fill our communities, fill our yards. Yeah. It's really gross. And I can only believe it's because this is the pollution that you don't know. Mm. You don't think about it when you're using it, when it sits in your garage and you use it, week after week. It's not something that you think about. Yeah. And really, we didn't know the extent of it until 2020 when the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, released emission data on this stuff, on this type of equipment. They looked at emissions from lawnmowers, string trimmers, leaf blowers, chainsaws, and it was shockingly high.
What does that show us? data.
That data shows us how much it tracked 4 different types of pollution, basically. Fine particulate pollution, which is that PM 2.5. So we almost all of us have a weather app on our phone, and you open that app, you scroll down to air you breathe. And if you're in a populated area of Florida, it's going to almost always, it'll never be excellent. I've never seen it excellent. It's like in that good, fair range. And it's the top trigger is PM 2.5. And there's a lot of different types of pollution that add to that. But you may not know that your gas-powered lawn equipment is a big addition to that. So it tracked fine particulate pollution, carbon dioxide, CO2, which we know, nitrogen oxides, which form into ozone, which are really horrible for your respiratory system, and then volatile organic compounds. So these are compounds that are known to cause cancer, or carcinogens, things like that. And so this emission data was really comprehensive, state by state, county by county. It was released. And our Environment Florida is a state chapter of Environment America. We partnered with some analysts and created a map so we could see what regions. We took this data, turned it into a map so we could see what regions of the country had the most amount of pollution. And Florida was number 1 in 2 of these types of pollution, and then second only to California in the other 2. So we are the epicenter of this kind of pollution. And you heard Kate kind of make an analogy there, but one that we found that we were able to kind of use from the EPA is that if you use a residential gas-powered leaf blower, which we focus on the leaf blower because it is the most inefficient of all of these types of equipment. It produces the most pollution.
Right. And also is deemed by many just to be completely unnecessary. I mean, we're moving leaves from place to place. Leaves upon which we walk, leaves which are beneficial. They turn into soil, right? Become detritus on the ground. And yet we want to put them in bags and load them into landfills.
Yeah, and they make homes. They're homes for insects, pollinators, especially through the winter months. But so if you use one of these residential gas-powered leaf blowers for an hour, the pollution is the equivalent of driving 15 cars around your neighborhood for an hour.
One leaf blower run for an hour is the equivalent of driving 15 cars for an hour.
Yeah.
Incredible. So if you ran a leaf blower, it stands to reason, inside of your garage, let's just say you fired it up with the garage door closed, you would suffer some you would suffer some severe health effects. But like you said, because we don't see this when we're out in the lawn, it doesn't necessarily register that we are blowing pollution into the, like an intense amount of local pollution into the atmosphere.
And when you really stop to think about it, every time you pull that string and you fire up that mower, you get that big puff of exhaust that hits you in the face, and you're like, oh, right, and you just move on. You just wave it out of the way and you move on. But we don't really think about what that exhaust is doing to us, what's contained in it, and the health repercussions from that, especially here where Florida is evergreen. We never take a vacation.
Grass does not stop growing necessarily here like it does in the Northeast and elsewhere. Fertile soil for lots of rain, so things are always growing here. It seems to me like Florida might have more lawn space than a lot of other states. I mean, we are full of people, 20 million residents growing every day, of course. Many of them have green lawns and maintain sort of green lawns. It's it's sold as part of the American dream, right? In retirement, you push your lawnmower around your lawn. That gives you something to do every week.
And
also golf courses, right? Tell us about golf courses.
More than anywhere else, really, in the world. Mm-hmm. That's what's been put out there, especially by tourism in Florida. We have more golf courses than anywhere else in the world, and so the maintenance.
We are mowing acres and acres and acres of golf courses every day. Got to be.
It's a tremendous amount of pollution. And just because you haven't heard of it before, people are kind of shocked. Oh, that can't be right. But it's like, no, think about it. Like, think about your own experience with your lawn equipment. Think about the smell. Mm-hmm. Think about how you feel when you're done mowing your lawn. It's awful.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I wonder if, it's almost worth like the experiment of it. Like, see how long you can stand in your closed garage running your leaf blower before you get sick.
Please don't do that.
this. Don't do this. I'm not I'm just put the idea in your head, and this is not a good thing. But somehow when we're out in the air and we don't see it, maybe we don't smell it, we're still creating that same amount of pollution, but we just don't care. So what do we do about this?
Well, one great alternative is electric lawn care. And for a while, people didn't want to give any credence to electric lawn care because the technology was new, it was expensive, it wasn't as powerful, performance wasn't as good. But we're past that now. We're long past that. Right now, electric equipment is doing really well. It's grown by 25% over the last 3 years. And a lot of different places like Home Depot have said that they are going to sell 85% of their lawn equipment electric by 2028.
Yeah.
So they've created that goal, right? Lowe's just put out a corporate responsibility report that said 60% of its current lawn care sales are electric. So we know that it's a trend, that it's moving, but the faster it moves, the healthier your home and your community is. Something that really helped is Consumer Reports did a gas versus electric lawn equipment article not long ago. And really they compared a number of areas like, performance, maintenance, even cut, how does the mower mulch, bagging, all of these different things. And what they found is that in many areas, they were right about even, like the difference was really insignificant between the two, except when you talk about noise reduction. Huge advantage for electric equipment.
Sure, it's more of a whir than a motor running. It's almost
the
it's not
decibel
silent,
level,
but it's much quieter. Yeah,
So when we first got our electric lawnmower, my husband was so excited.
Yeah.
And it was 10 o'clock at night. And he's like, I'm going to go mow the lawn. And I said, no, are you kidding me? Like the president of our HOA lives next door. You can't do that. We're going to get in trouble. So no, he's like, no, listen, we can do it. And he did. And it was so quiet. I mean, yeah, it's not noiseless, but it was quiet enough that we didn't wake anybody up.
How about that? So noise greatly reduced. I imagine the pollution.
There's not. I mean,
now there's a trade-off, right? I mean, we've got battery technology that has some negative environmental consequences. So this is not replacing a bad thing with a completely good thing, right?
Sure. Yeah, there is some trade-off with the battery. So if you think about like overall environmental impact on a global scale, it's not without pollution.
Yeah.
But if you think about
air pollution.
your home and the changes that you may have made around your home to make things a little healthier or cleaner for your family, like this is a way that you can have a local impact on your yard, on your neighborhood, in your community. Like we're an advocacy organization, so it's not just you. You can talk to your city and your county commissioners and say, hey, these parks that my kids play in every day are mowed with this commercial equipment that's super toxic.
Yeah.
Like, you think a residential leaf blower is bad?
Yeah.
A commercial leaf blower
Yeah.
in an hour produces the same emissions as driving a car from Tampa to New York City.
Incredible. I'm just imagining someone showing up at city council and with a leaf blower and running it in chambers. Just nobody would like that, right? But we're doing it all outside with no issues. Now, have municipalities in anywhere sort of done anything to reduce the use of harmful?
Sure, there have been some. There have been some. There have been some bans that have been put in place around mostly just leaf blowers. And it's either they prohibit or they limit the use, like the hours that you can use them. So it's mostly noise pollution related, not necessarily environmental pollution related. But I think that that's going to change as people start to learn about these numbers. So this data came out in 2020. We produced this report in 2023, and still lots of people don't know this. They don't know this information, so I think that as people start to learn about it and they're looking at ways that populations grow, pollution grows, and they start to look at ways like, how can I get away from this pollution other than just move out to the country,
Yeah.
That you'll see this take off more, especially at the community level. When we start to ask, many municipalities have sustainability officers now. This is a great ask of your sustainability officer to take a look at converting your commercial gas-powered equipment to electric.
Yeah. How about locally? Do you know of any moves to make that conversion by local municipalities? I seem to see police vehicles occasionally, electric vehicles, but what about when it comes to lawn care? Is anybody doing it right around here?
I do not know that answer.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know of anyone.
Keep your eyes peeled. Well, listen, folks, you're our eyes and ears out there. Look at the city workers. Look at the municipality workers. Are they using gas-powered leaf blowers and lawn care equipment, or are they using something electric and more efficient? And maybe you can raise that issue with your municipality. Is that how you suggest folks do this?
Absolutely.
Reach out.
Yeah, beyond your own home.
Yeah.
Look at the barriers. Like, what would stop you from purchasing electric equipment right now? Cost is probably one thing, right? So maybe you had some beliefs about performance, but I would suggest, try it out. We're doing demos. I'm doing this weekend. I'm doing a demo of electric equipment down at the Tampa Bay Flower Show in Greenfest at the Tampa Bay Garden Club this weekend. So try out this stuff and see, what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, as a guy who has no stake in this, I bought an electric mower a couple of years ago. I've cut my grass efficiently and cleanly with it. I love the thing. I find virtually no maintenance outside of charging the battery when you're not using it, that sort of thing. The price, I can't remember exactly how much I paid for it, but it was reasonable. It wasn't more expensive so far as I could tell versus your standard gas-powered lawn equipment.
It's usually a little more, but think about, how often have you bought gas for your electric mower?
Never.
How about oil?
No oil.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to take a look at the projections of that.
Yeah.
Over a series of years.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we'd be remiss if we didn't also introduce the idea that you don't necessarily have to mow your lawn. Lawn care equipment, gas-powered or electric-powered, is not necessary, right? I mean, we have Florida-friendly landscaping programs that encourage residents to, you could probably talk about this.
To let it grow. Let it grow.
Exactly.
But that really depends on where you live. In my neighborhood, it's not an option. You have to mow your lawn to be compliant with your HOA. But depending on where you live, absolutely, especially if you're careful to plant natively at the beginning. Looking for ways to reduce the amount of grass that you have in your lawn is a great way to reduce pollution overall, right? Because you're using your lawn equipment less, no matter what it is. So finding sections where you can add that Florida-friendly landscaping and planting natives. And if you're in an area where you can let it grow, I have a backyard area that is not really visible from the street. And so I have. And this beautiful, pollinator garden has emerged of just wildflowers.
That you just let
That I just let it go. I just let it go. Now, grass has not been there for a while. It's covered mostly with leaves. But then through the leaves now have come these beautiful flowers and tons of pollinators. I didn't even intend or plant it. So yes, if you have the opportunity to not even use equipment, do it.
I've noticed this a lot in the Northeast when I travel. It seems to me like it's been a trend for people to mow a couple of strips around the edge of the grass, like along the curb and the driveway in the house, but then leave the sort of center as a wild growth meadow. And I like the way this looks. As a guy concerned with this aesthetics, returning a portion of your yard to the wild is it can be aesthetically pleasing with the right kind of landscaping and maintenance.
I think so too. What's great is you can experiment it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, your yard's like your hair. You cut it and it grows.
Yeah.
So you try something out. And if you don't like it, try something different next time. You can experiment.
Yeah. There you go. And you might be surprised what grows up through your, through your grass. Some interesting plants in Florida. So how else, you have a list of ways that people can take action, such as join a local environmental organization that works on issues like this, like Moms Clean Air Force and Environment Florida and others. What are some of the other tips that you have for people who are concerned about the environment locally and want to get involved?
Yeah, so joining a coalition is one. If you make the change for yourself in your home and you have a great experience with it, share that. Share that experience, because me telling you something doesn't even hold a candle till if you have like a neighbor and you hear word of mouth of somebody.
Right.
And if you have this equipment at home, be free with it. I let people use it. I say, like, I'll stand on the corner with my electric leaf blower, and I'll use it a bit. And anybody comes by, I'm like, hey, do you want to try this out? Have you seen this? Have you tried one of these? I mean, they should hire me to sell their electric lawn equipment, because I'm always trying to get people to try it out. So be your own advocate of this equipment. You have the power in your community. Your voice is powerful, not only amongst your neighbors, but also at your city council meetings and at your county commission meetings. Your voice is powerful. So lifting it, and whether you're talking about a ban, which hasn't gone well in some places in Florida, has gone well in some other places. It really depends on the type of community you live in, or just asking them to really step up and make some conversions. You'll find that once you start to lift your voice about this, other people will join you. You can form a coalition of people who are working on this issue together. And that's how change is made, when voices band together and then lift to our leaders.
Now, I see a lot of crews, lawn care crews, rolling around with the trailers and the pickup trucks full of lawn care equipment. And just anecdotally, the vast majority of that is gas-powered equipment. Do you see those types? Because we relegate a lot of lawn maintenance. We hire that stuff out anymore. It's not the homeowner who's caring for the. But do you see that change happening slowly with the crews? Is there anything a homeowner can do to direct their money to crews that are more environmentally friendly? It's
a much slower change because the investment in equipment is so much more off the bat. There are some all electric lawn care companies. I think Electrolawn is one in Tampa that works all over Tampa. And when I talk to the owners of that, they say that the number one thing that their customers love is the reduction of noise, that they can mow, that they can take care of their lawn at 7:30 in the morning and nobody even knows that they were there. Yeah. So while as an environmentalist, I'd love to be like, yes, less pollution, because they got that too. It's really the noise that drives customers to them. So there is some options. They're slow to grow. I know I talked with the owner of Suntech in Orlando, and these guys, they're really innovative, right? Because there's obstacles to overcome. It's not just the equipment that you need. How do you charge the batteries all day, right? How do you keep growing? Like many of these guys have developed solar panels on their trailers. So they have a number of batteries that they switch out and charge throughout the day. Just really innovative, excellent ways to use renewable energy for good in your neighborhood.
So maybe if you're hiring out, you could ask about their environmental take. If you're trying to get a lawn care crew, are you using the best equipment, the most environmentally friendly equipment?
Yeah. The majority of them will tell you no.
Right.
Right now, they will. But the more people that ask about it, if these companies hear that need from their customers, maybe they will. Maybe they start with one line of equipment, And so they have, we have 5 customers that want this. But as that grows, that conversion can happen more organically, driven by the market. So if you say, hey, I would love to have this, ask your lawn care company.
Yeah. And if you have gas-powered equipment right now, should you throw it in the trash and rush out and buy electric equipment? What's the best way to sort of phase out? The most environmentally friendly way to phase between, to make that transition in the last 30 seconds?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. Yeah. There are places that scrap that equipment. Yeah. So that would be the first thing I would say. If you have the ability to run out and convert everything at once to electric, absolutely do it. Your family will thank you. Your lungs will thank you. But don't just put that stuff in the trash. No, take it to a place where it can be scrapped and turned into something different.
Thank you so much to Mia McCormick, who's an advocate for Environment Florida Research and Policy Center. And if you want to take a look at some of the research that's gone into this about lawn care, gas-powered lawn care equipment, you can find that at environmentamerica.org, environmentamerica.org. We encourage you to check that out. And for the skinny, Joe on the boards, Ray, who was here earlier, Sia, Mitch, you're in Tallahassee, but we're glad to be here with you on WMNF. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.